Testing. So we will try and get started in about 2 minutes. Okay, we will get started. I'm Malcolm Hayworth. I'm with the Fig Tree. I serve as the Fig Tree's annual editor for the Community Resource Directory, and also for events like this serve as the Ecumenical and Interfaith Liaison. So I'd like to welcome you today to the Eastern Washington Legislative Conference with the theme, We Shall Overcome, Building the Beloved Community Today. So before I go through some of the program itself, I did just want to offer a brief, reflection on the theme this year. So the first part of it comes from, I think, what many of us, understand as the song that often is part of, a lot of social justice movements and rallies. But there is a, more interesting, source of that song that has roots in African American spiritual songs and in the early 1900s, a pastor who versed a poem that started off, "We will overcome," or sorry, "I will overcome," and that transformed by the 1940s and 50s into "We will overcome" to "We shall overcome" through social activism of workers' movements and African American civil rights movement to where we come to today. In the book recently by Slavoj Zizek, who's a contemporary kind of Marxist philosopher, he wrote in the book Christian Atheism. And so I'll kind of give a little bit of quote in one part and a paraphrase in the next to kind of reflect upon this transition. There was a priest in Rome by the name of Raphael Nogaro who claimed that Christ is the new man who loves everyone without distinction of person, whatever his culture, the color of his skin, his religion, or the depth of his atheism. Everyone is asked by Jesus the same question: who do you say that I am? Note that for Nogaro, Christ is not a figure of authority telling people what they are. He is asking them about what they are saying that he is. And one should not take this as a cheap rhetorical trick in the sense of, I know who I am, the Son of God. I just want to check if you know this. Christ is aware in that in some way his very existence is at stake, not only in what and how people are talking about him, but above all in how they act or don't act in society. Each of us has to give a reply to Jesus' question from one's existential depth, and that is, and then enact this reply. And later on, he speaks of looking at the aspects of the Holy Spirit and the Holy Ghost as transforming that examination of the I and how we serve into the we of solidarity. And so I want to have that be kind of a lingering reflection in what you hear and listen to and want to reflect on, but then also act on, within the day's context and outside of the day's context too. So first I want to bring up Pastor Alyssa Amstoy from Spokane Valley United Methodist to do a little bit of housekeeping.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Reverend Alyssa Amistoy. My pronouns are she, hers, and it is my joy to serve as pastor here at Spokane Valley United Methodist Church. And on behalf of our congregation, our staff, and our volunteers, allow me to express our gratitude that you have gathered here once again in our facility for the Eastern Washington Legislative Conference. To ensure that you all have a safe, comfortable, and accessible experience in our facility, allow me to share a few pieces of information with you. First, we have restrooms throughout the facility. There's a set of men's and women's just outside the sanctuary doors. Down the long hallway, there are gender-neutral single-use restrooms, and there's another set of men's and women's on the second floor. We do have an elevator that will take you to the second floor. As someone who has a little bit of elevator trauma, allow me to share, it is very quiet and it is very smooth. It is moving. It will deliver you to the second floor, but it will feel like you've gone nowhere. My heart's already racing just talking about it. If you or the person sitting next to you would benefit from some hearing assistive technology, we do have headphones in the back that connect to our sound system. They're available at the back table with the schedule for the day, as well as the facility map. There is signage throughout the facility to help you find the different workshops, but there is a map there at the table to help you find your way. We do encourage you to stay hydrated, as always, and we do have a drinking fountain with a water bottle refilling station right outside the sanctuary to the left. If at any time during the conference you need help, there will be a volunteer stationed at the Connect desk where you picked up your name tag, but there will also be volunteers from our church located throughout the facility, and you can also try to find me, and we'll be happy to assist you. I do pray that you have a safe, comfortable, and accessible experience here at Spokane Valley United Methodist Church.
Next up, we have Emily Clark, who will offer commentary on land acknowledgement. Emily Clark is a professor of religious studies at Gonzaga University, currently serves as the director of Gonzaga Center for Teaching and Advising.
Good morning. This church, where we are gathered this morning, resides on the unceded homelands of the Spokane tribal people. The people of the river today live on the reservation west of town, as well as throughout the region, serving as civic leaders, lawyers, historians, educators, artists, and more. The Spokane tribe views this land as sacred and are models of harmonious stewardship with the land. We show gratitude to the land, river, and peoples who have been fishing, hunting, harvesting, and gathering here for generations. May we learn from one another's stories so we may nurture the relationship of the people of the Spokane tribe and to all those who share this land. A land acknowledgement has no meaning unless it prompts change. It means recognizing our responsibility to Indigenous communities in our region to support their flourishing and that of this earth that sustains us all. Today's theme is We Shall Overcome, building the beloved community today. When I hear both these phrases, I think of another volatile period in American history, the Civil Rights Movement, during which activists of a variety of backgrounds, including the work of the American Indian Movement, openly addressed issues of injustice. To build a beloved community means an inclusive and pluralistic community. The beloved community was a key concept for Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. A line from the book of Amos comes to mind, and it's Dr. King's favorite line. Let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. The Spokane people are a river people. We are grateful to be on this land for the people who stewarded it and ask for its support as we work to manifest our intentions during this gathering of hearts, minds, and spirits.
Next, we will have Lorraine Wiley with the Salish School, and she is from the Arrow Lakes Band of the Colville Confederation.
Wylim lam tin chai squistin I sitat kulkin hatuskal skletten soch chinsen ma mayetan talikin lim kuch ulus apanata sochal dulkin ala nasmanimplum. I'm Lorraine Wiley. I'm a former executive director and one of the founders of Salish School Spokane, and I'm really happy to be here with you today. I wanted to share a song. It's our way when we gather to sing. And it's a way of honoring each other, a way of honoring the work that will be done today. And this song is a song I learned from the elder Herman Edwards in the Spokane Valley in British Columbia. And it's a song that the elders created to help us to overcome, to help us recognize the power and the beauty that exists within us. The words say, because we are beautiful, because we are Salish people, because this is our land. And if you wouldn't mind standing, if you could, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine. First up, would like to invite up those who are part of the Interfaith Music for Advocacy while they are getting set up. I'll just go over a little bit of what we are planning to go through the day really quickly. So first part of the day is plenary session here within the sanctuary for the first part of the day. We will have a break at 11, and we have a series of plenary and panels before that, and then briefing with state issues at 11:20. That 20-minute period you can spend anywhere where you need to in terms of going to the restroom or going and getting some brunch or going to visit many of our tables that are out in the gym and the room next to it in 115, I believe. And 12 o'clock is going to be lunch, which is over in the gym. And then afternoon, we have 2 sets of workshops, 1 o'clock and at 2. And then we close here at 2:50. So hope that you can come back here. We may also include some information as to how to get more informed and to be more, active within the faith community at that point too. So that's kind of the overview. And so we will first have up those who are doing the interfaith opening.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jadrian Tarver, and I bring you greetings of light, joy, and love. In these times where life is dark, it is bleak, and it is cold, and it feels more like night than daylight. It feels more like winter than spring or summer. Remember that you are the light when darkness overtakes and overshadows. And so I would like to begin with a communal song, "This Little Light of Mine, I'm Gonna Let It Shine." Right now it's a little cold in here, so hopefully we can warm it up. Make sure you pat your feet, clap your hands, rock a little bit, and sway if the Spirit allows you to do so. This Little Light of Mine was often sang during the Civil Rights Movement. It is a spiritual, a Black spiritual. So this morning, let's join in song with singing This Little Light of Mine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. So hopefully your cold hands are warm now.
The old hymns gone? Well, they're still around, but here are a few that are being sung at the oldest church in town. God, make us agents of joyful rebellion, called to resist sullen empires of fear, fueled not by hatred, but love for all people. We stand united, assured you are here. That's God, make us agents of joyful rebellion. Here's another one. When my soul is sore and troubled, when my mind is heavy burdened, then I cry, my God, my God. A couple of new hymns just from in our midst. A couple of new hymns from Ben Brody, who happens to be the head of the music department at Whitworth, and who happens to have written a couple of great hymn books that we're using at Westminster UCC. One more that I want to bring you, and this time a little more in its completion, because the new hymns which deal with the issues of our time and put them all together in really interesting ways. This one's called Gracious Gardener of Creation. And the first verse will simply deal with the idea of creation and how and what was created and by whom. The second puts the spotlight on us, and that way that what have we done with that creation? And yes, the third gives us a certain sense of a reconciliation. Keep the accompaniment a little down so that the words, you and I can really communicate these words.
Sounds good.
Here we go. Gracious gardener of creation, by your word the worlds were made. By your breath the winds awaken. By your plan the stars arrayed. As the Spirit summoned sunrise, stirred the seas and shaped the sands, so she scattered seeds of promise, sown in grace by loving hands. Yet, O God, how we have trampled through the garden of your grace. We have twisted your creation to a heartless marketplace. Even still, your Spirit tends us, bringing water, warmth, and light, raising up the vine and branches till the wrongs give way to right. See the fruit the Spirit nurtures, verdant virtuosity, love and patience, joy and kindness, peace and generosity, faithfulness to God and neighbor, gentleness and self-control. Gracious gardener, lend and guide us till creation is made whole. And we append, till creation is made whole. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Jadrin. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Vern. What am I doing here? Well, Mary Stamp asked, and I didn't say no. She might have thought that I'd have something to say because I've been singing songs with young people around the campfire for 30-some years at Camp and Sitson. But what am I doing here? I'm going to try to carry the torch for a couple of minutes and then pass it on to you. As I tried to prepare for this, I tried to go to the well to learn from some of the giants, and I was lucky. A friend had just passed on a link to an interview with Joan Baez, one of my heroes as a young person, and I'm going to recommend the interview to you. Nicole Wallace interviewed Joan Baez in the September 22nd episode of her podcast, The Best People, so you can find it on YouTube. One of the first things that Joan said during their conversation was, social change cannot happen until somebody is willing to take a risk. So I suppose we should be pretty hopeful because there sure have been a lot of people taking risks. I feel like they're putting me to shame. I think she was talking about the Vietnam War era when she said it was the worst of times and it was the worst of times. But I don't think she would argue that these are not the worst of times too. She said, there's a lot of fear now. We self-censor. But she also said, the stars aligned and we had a movement. We had the glue. I don't know how you create it, she said. Well, I think that's one of the things we're doing here today, finding some glue. Part of the glue they had back then was Pete Seeger. Joan Baez said, the Petes of the world and the hundreds of thousands of people who protested and sang and marched and sat in and got arrested, that's why the war finally ended. It had nothing to do with the president. He didn't want it to end. That quote you can also find on YouTube. It's a 2007 PBS documentary called Pete Seeger, The Power of Song. I recommend it. You'll learn if you watch that when Bob Dylan and Joan Baez came on the scene, Pete Seeger had been at it for quite some time. It was in 1957 that Pete met Dr. King, and when Dr. King heard Pete sing, We Shall Overcome. Bob and Joan were young back then. Philip Labies is young right now. We heard about him from our daughter, and I think about Bob Dylan when I hear him sing. I'm going to take a little risk, and I'm going to sing one of his songs right now. And I'm going to tell you, I thought about bleeping this, but to honor Philip and the heartbreak and the frustration he portrays, I'm going to sing it word for word. I have a friend of a friend who shot themselves one day. I think most of us have somebody like that who's gone away. If she'd had time to think about it, maybe she'd be around. But you can get a gun in 20 minutes in this town. I was held up on a train by a kid about 14, ochre brown and terrified, holding a death machine. And if you think giving me a gun would have stopped the whole damn thing, you're trying to untangle things by adding extra string. It's a little bit the people who we've left outside to drown. It's a little bit the Black Rock rent that's never going down. It's a little bit the internet and the way we raise our sons. But mostly it's the guns. Yeah, it's the guns. I don't want to hear any argument that you pretend you believe, lest you'll say it to the mother who's still caught up in her grief. You've been willing to try nothing, your hands thrown in the air. God, I wish I could stop bullets with your thoughts and with your prayers. Did you know that laws are made up, and the Constitution too? You can change them when mass murder becomes the usual thing we do. I've never seen a group of tyrants so determined not to budge. Sorry we slowed your sails down with our bodies and our blood. It's a little bit the people who we've left left outside to drown. It's a little bit the black rock rent that's never going down. It's a little bit the internet and the way we raise our sons. But mostly it's the guns. Yeah, it's the guns. So buy back every gun from police and people too. Change the Constitution if that's what you have to do. You made up this individual right to carry and feel strong. But the right for children to grow up is written in the stars. And the right to live in peace is one that's given out by God. And if you're out of line with that, you change the fucking laws. It's the guns. It's the guns. It's the guns.
Good morning. Congratulations to all of you getting up this early on a Saturday morning. Woo-hoo! The Spokane Raging Grannies are glad to be here with you as we build the beloved community now. We know community wins. My name is Janet Farnes. Some of you may not be familiar with the Raging Grannies. I'd call our group omni-religious, and we use humor and song to engage folks in new thinking. We are a global disorganization. Our local group has developed a statement about its identity and its intentions, and I'll read that for you now. Through song and humor, in the tradition of wise women elders, Spokane Raging Grannies raise awareness of human rights, gender equity, education, democracy, racial equality, environmental health, poverty, peace, and issue of the day. We keep step with current issues and participate in social action. It says all these things on our card. We thought about that a long time. We hope you'll join all of these wonderful musical voices this afternoon at 1 o'clock as we dive more deeply into the power of music to change minds. And for us, how the Grannies do what we do, how we activate ourselves and others. All of us will be sharing more songs this afternoon, and hope you'll sing along with us as we breathe and build community. It'll be 1 o'clock here in this sanctuary. A group of grannies is called a gaggle. And right now, we'd like to share a song entitled Gaggle Against Hate.
Oh, we're a gaggle of grannies, urging you off of your fannies. We're raising our voice, we want a new choice. No more hate, discrimination unending, promises that we're still pending, to each of their share. We want a world where there's no more hate. Whether it's immigrants, judges, votes, or schools, equality's the answer. Justice now must rule. So join this gaggle of grannies. Get up off of your fannies. We're telling you now, we're angry and loud. No more hate. We really mean it. No more hate. We mean precisely no more hate. We'll say it very nicely. No more hate. Read our lips.
So thank you to all of our musical talent. I hope you are all energized from that. Kind of reminded me of summer church camp a bit, and days in campus ministry at both WSU and Eastern. So next up, we have our spiritual ramifications of persistence, and Gary Jewell will be the moderator and introduce our panelists.
Well, it's an honor to be able to moderate, which is basically getting out of the way and let them talk. Our panelists have prepared roughly 7 minutes to share on the intersection of spirituality and persistence. And so I'm really interested in hearing how the interplay can sustain us for the long haul. This is very important. I meant to say with the grannies, I heard an expression not too long ago, we need to do less clutching of our pearls and more swinging of our purses. So, non-violently, of course. I say that as a Mennonite pastor. So our panelists, we have invited to speak, and then hopefully we might have a little bit of time for some questions. We have Liv Larson, and Liv, this is a mouthful. You are the Director for Evangelical Mission for the Northwest Intermountain Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America. Yeah. So representing the Lutherans is Liv, and we're happy to have you here. Max Olivia, Father Max? O-L-I-V-A. Oh, okay. Oliva. Thank you. Much appreciated. You probably are used to a little bit of that. I am. Yes. Anyway, you have taken on the work of the Jesuits as a brother since 1963, author of many books. I understand you work part-time in Las Vegas as well as serving the church here in Spokane. Awesome.
Where there's sin, there's grace.
Amen. We have Bishop Gretchen Rehberg here, who is our ordained and consecrated since 2017 as the 9th Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Spokane. And so representing our Episcopal brothers and sisters, we have also Karen Stromgren. Did I say it right? Yeah. Yay. Serves as Executive Director for Muslims for Community Action and Support and is a former board member of Human Rights Spokane, serving the Muslim community. So welcome, all four of you. Thank you for agreeing to come and speak. I kind of stepped on my feet a little bit yesterday. I sent you some possible questions to ponder, but it sounds like you have been thinking about this subject for a bit. So as you have prepared, we are eager to receive. So Gretchen, would you like to go first? Sure. Okay.
So we are asked to think about the spiritual ramifications of persistence. So let me start by saying that persistence is a spiritual virtue that rarely looks heroic in the moment. It's quieter than courage. It is less dramatic than sacrifice, but it is the steady decision to remain, to continue, to pray again, to listen again, to show up again, even when the work is slow, the results not necessarily being seen, and the outcome uncertain. So I speak from the Christian tradition, but specifically from the Episcopal tradition. And so in our understanding, persistence is not primarily about willpower, but about faithfulness. We will talk about continuing in the apostles' teaching. We promise in our baptismal covenant to persevere in resisting evil, to seek and serve Christ in all persons, to strive for justice and peace, to respect the dignity of every human being. These are long-term, words are not instantaneous. A simple aside, when we do a marriage service, we don't ask people, do you? You know, at Hollywood, they'll say, I do. We don't say that. They might mean that today. We actually say, will you? Right? It's about persistence, about the long term. And so persistence assumes the road will be long. Jesus tells parables of this kind of, what we would say, holy tenacity. Right? The woman who keeps knocking at the door of the unjust judge. The friend who's seeking bread at midnight. The sower who scatters the seeds, even on rocky soil. These stories from Scripture remind us that it's not about winning arguments or forcing our way, but it's about trusting that faithfulness itself participates in God's future. We can think about stories from our own life as well. The elders who showed up year after year after year, who kept going in a congregation. The teachers who never gave up on a child. Those who stayed true. I mean, I say, I stand on the shoulders of giants, right? And when I think about this in the interfaith context, I think that whether one speaks of covenant or of dharma or of submission to God, of walking the path, of repairing the world, spiritual traditions know transformation is not instant. It comes through sustained practice. It comes through disciplined compassion and what sometimes people call the long obedience of love. But our culture is shaped by immediacy, right? We want instant gratification. They now say that the attention span is a lot less than when I was teaching. I forget the exact numbers, but it's in seconds. It's absurd, I think. We're used to results, quick fixes. I find this myself. If something doesn't load immediately on the computer, I get impatient. And so we're taught that if something doesn't work instantly, do something else, right? Political life can tend to lead us to despair when progress stalls. Or when you think that the battle has been won, and then something happens. Anyway, we're also taught in our personal life, it's okay to abandon relationships, communities, institutions, if it becomes difficult, right? We're taught in many ways by our culture, move on. The vision of the beloved community, which is a phrase deeply rooted in faith, tradition, imagination, and anchored in our faith, cannot be built without persistence. Because beloved community is not a slogan, it is a way of life formed over time. Truth-telling, repentance, forgiveness, shared commitment. So I think about just the work of racial justice and reconciliation. I think many people hope for swift transformation, moments of national awakening, but the deeper work absolutely takes time and persistence. It's the changing hearts, changing structures, changing habits. It's slow. Cultural change is slow work. It requires persistent listening across differences, sustained education, the courage to remain in relationships when conversations are uncomfortable. The same is true about what is happening in Minnesota with ICE. To have the deep conversations with those who deeply believe differently than I do requires persistent courage and persistent curiosity and the willingness to stay in relationship. In Episcopal terms, we would call this baptismal living, right? Continuing to respect the dignity of every human being, no matter what. Not just once, but over and over and over again, regardless of what it costs us. If we think about some of the loneliness that is epidemic in our world, which is intensified by technology, by years of social disruption, building community often means that we have to look for ways to gather together. So continuing to gather, even when it doesn't do anything for me. I can just tell you as a pastor, when somebody says from the pews that worship service didn't do anything for me, I want to say it's not about you. Right? But I also know it is about you, right? It is about you finding deep fellowship, deep encounters with God, deep ways of being together. And so we gather to pray, to eat together, to check on our neighbors. We need to practice hospitality, even when it seems very, very small. In the language of my tradition, it is the quiet faithfulness of praying every day. It is the Eucharist week after week. It is the steady rhythm that forms a person and a people to remember who they truly are. So my understanding of theology, we believe that God works sacramentally through ordinary things, bread and wine and oil and water and time and persistence honors this sacramental vision. It trusts that God is at work not only just in dramatic events, but in the slow, steady, faithful accumulation of grace and the habits of love. And so to persist spiritually is to believe that what we do repeatedly in love matters. It is to trust that prayer offered, even when we don't feel like it, even when we feel dry, still opens up space for God. It is to keep choosing dialogue over dismissal. It is to choose hope over cynicism. It is to persist instead of withdraw. And so in a world that's really hungry for quick answers, persistence is actually a form of resistance. It resists despair. It resists a life that says nothing will change. It resists the temptation to give up. And in the language of faith, persistence ultimately is an act of trust, not in ourselves, but in the God who has begun a good work already. Persistence ultimately is trusting that God is faithful. And that means that we can rely on that, because it's not ourselves we rely on, but the God who never gives up on us.
Amen. My older son returned from a trip to the Olympic Peninsula and reported that in a span of 3 days, he counted 44 banana slugs. I say that to you to give thanks for this topic of persistence, to give thanks for the gathering here of this day, this holy day, to even give thanks for the hugs I was granted on my way in, reminders of persistent relationship that I have enjoyed in this community. So I give thanks for the persistence already at work that's gathered us. When I received this invitation and topic, persistence in me, in my body, had a bit of I had a reaction, almost against it. I thought, oh gosh, I feel so tired. So I want to also recognize the themes underneath this topic, and maybe the experiences down under our own bodies today, experiences of exhaustion, of sadness. Bishop Gretchen has named despair, disappointment. We keep showing up. I keep seeing all you people here. We got to stop meeting this way. No. But we carry the, man, I really wish this would have gone this way. So just holding that, it strikes me that this beautiful theme, we shall overcome creation and nature and the persistence of the beauty of the natural world, has me thinking perhaps a spiritual approach to persistence is we shall undergo. Not so much overcome with our own gumption, but to be received by the holy and to undergo transformation. So the spiritual practice of persistence, for me, particularly in recent years, has been to put my body in touch with creation and in touch with my creaturely and human neighbors. It's dangerous to quote Martin Luther, but I'm going to do it. Somewhere along the way, he said, God writes the gospel not only in our holy book, but in every tree and mountain and river. Thanks be to God. So we watch nature persist. Thank you, Ben and Vern, for these beautiful hymns about that persistence of creation. And we remember how the divine persists with us, I remember best, by putting my body outside in creation. So it is a tender act to attempt to raise sons in this time. That came up in the song too. So I began with that instance of the 44 banana slugs as sort of a beauty that we can teach and remind each other how to persist by pointing to the creatures that persist all around us. I live 2 blocks north of the Spokane River, and in the last about couple years, I've had a spiritual practice of putting my body in the river. It's cold. It's really cold. But being down there and even just being beside the river, I am blessed and reminded, and it was held in the gorgeous land acknowledgement and the reference to Amos today. The river persists. And likewise, God and God's vision of shalom and belovedness persists. And what a gift to be able to participate, however we participate. I also want to celebrate that this morning, that, watching my dear Lutheran colleagues in Minnesota persist, kneeling, right, advocating and all that. And there's a whole lot of hidden persistence as well. Things seen and unseen, our creed says. So the persistent prayer advocates, the people making sandwiches, the folks, trying to lovingly raise children in this time and be people together. So I think for me, persistence is an invitation to be river people and to receive the divine beauty and persistence that's all around us. So I give thanks for this opportunity to reflect on that.
Well, I started this reflection by going to my favorite resource, Google. And I asked the question of Google, what is persistence? And this is what I got. It is the steadfast continuation of a course of action despite difficulty, opposition, or failure. It builds inner strength, endurance, character, and in many contexts is necessary for personal growth and success. Very good. Adding to your reflection on persistence. When I considered this virtue in my own life as a Jesuit and Catholic, I start at the foundation of who I am and the rock upon which I stand. It is the personal and unconditional love of God. It is from this perspective that I have had the inner strength to persist in working for peace and justice, for the past 57 years. This is what I have learned, and I'm sure that everyone here can resonate with what I'm going to share. So many issues. Which ones to take on? When the present president was elected for the second time, I had to make a decision. Should I put my energy into the climate, into education, or my favorite, immigration? I chose immigration. And I have learned that there's so many different aspects of this immigration issue, and it takes a lot of energy to deal with them all. With the help of the Holy Spirit and an honest inventory of my gifts and talents, strengths and weaknesses, I've been able to respond, I think, to the best of my ability to the problems of the times. But I've learned that you can't do it alone. We need the help of like-minded people. That's community. It's a team effort. On 2 occasions, I've been in situations where, as an entrepreneur, I started a ministry in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and in order to do that, being from California, I formed a 9-person advisory committee to help me to understand the oil and gas industries, which are the main industries in southern Alberta, because the ministry that God called me to was to the corporate community on ethics and spirituality. When I got to Las Vegas, where I've been involved for the last 16 years, first by living there and then by commuting from Spokane, I had to look at, not only my strengths and weaknesses, but also my temptations. What to do, where to live, no other Jesuits there, trusting that God would provide, did, and I'm still here. Haven't lost all my money. So I have learned there as well, formed a committee to help me to understand the culture of Nevada, southern Nevada. That team effort has been the secret to my success. I've also learned that it's important to have a balanced life, time for play, for rest, for the company of family and friends, without feeling guilty about it. I need play. My favorite animal is horses. Wherever I've lived, I've tried to connect with horses. Here, it's with Rivers Sanctuary over in 7 Mile. So time for play. Also taking time for prayerful reflection, which can be done, obviously, in a variety of ways according to one's faith tradition or other way of being. It has helped me, and I've learned this from one of my cousins who did his degree in social work and was told when he was going to San Francisco State to get his degree by his professor that unless you have a sense of humor, you should get out of this work, because otherwise you're going to lose it. So it has helped me to have a sense of humor even in the midst of an adversity. Otherwise, I get so overwhelmed by the fact that I become depressed and can't do anything. I learned from Trappist monk Thomas Merton, who was an important figure in opposing the war in Vietnam, that persistence has to do also with a kind of detachment from the need for results. Here is Merton in his own words. Do not depend on the hope of results. When you are doing the sort of work you have taken on, you may have to face the fact that the results may be the opposite to what you expect. As you get used to this idea, you start more and more to concentrate not on the results, but on the value, the truth of the work itself. The big results are not in your hands or mine, but they suddenly happen. If you can get free from the domination of causes and just serve God's truth, you will be able to do more, persist, and will be less crushed by disappointments. 3 models of beautiful and faithful persistence that have inspired me. I was involved in the 70s with the United Farm Workers Union and the boycott of grapes, and I had the opportunity to meet Cesar Chavez and his wife Helen and have a meal with them. So Cesar and Dolores Huerta of the United Farm Workers Union are 2 people who are models for me of persistence. Secondly, Martin Luther King Jr. In the mid-60s, I was sent to work in the black community in San Francisco during civil rights. Because of my background, which is in business, I started a ministry to get job interviews for black men who were out of work, some of whom had arrest records and some of whom were lacking in skills. Martin Luther King Jr. was buried during that time and had a big impact on me through his persistent, not only his persistence, but giving of his life, which is the ultimate act of persistence. And thirdly, and this is somebody brand new for me, is Elsa Mendoza. Elsa Mendoza is the mother of Fernando Mendoza, quarterback for the Indiana Hoosiers college football team. Elsa has had MS since 2007. She attends all of her son's games with her husband, sitting in a wheelchair, cheering on her son. One commentator commented that she maintains a positive attitude despite her disability. Fernando won this year's Heisman Trophy and led the Hoosiers to their first college championship. But he credits his mother as his hero and dedicated the trophy to her. So, Cesar, Dolores, Martin, Elsa, my models. Thank you.
I gotta follow all of these guys. Wow. Assalamu alaikum. Wow, persistence, spirituality, a lot. In Islam, we believe sabr, which is not passive, waiting, but a proactive, beautiful patience involving steadfastness, endurance, resolution in the face of adversity. Immigrants, refugees have been facing a lot of adversity lately. It's just what's happening, unfortunately. I know in my family, we are scared like everyone else, immigrants, refugees, those of color. I have children that are of color. I have friends that are of color, friends from all over the place that are of color. And they are scared. We hope, we have a lot of hope in our Muslim community. The core of Islamic teachings is unwavering belief in the mercy of Allah. Be not then the faint of heart and given not, for you are bound to the high if you are one who truly believes. This verse encapsulates the essence of hope. Muslims facing persecution are encouraged to anchor their hope in Allah's promises It is a steadfast in belief, despite the trials. Allah's mercy prevails, and the believers will ultimately triumph. This hope becomes a source of strength and resilience. Active resistance and advocacy. While patience is a virtue, Islam does not advocate passive endurance in the face of injustice. The Quran instructs us, the believers, both men and women, support each other. They will what is right and forbid what is wrong. They say nothing will happen to us except that what Allah has decreed for us. Surah Al-Tawbah. This ayah offers a perspective. It doesn't dismiss our pain or actions in the divine wisdom. Everything that happens, good or bad, is within Allah's plan. It reminds us to surrender to His will while still making dua, seeking help, striving forward. If you ever wanted to carry the Quran with you, not just physically, but spiritually, memorizing key Quranic verses is one of the best ways to do that. We as Muslims try very hard to, remember the verses, to practice the verses every day. I am a revert, so I am still learning. All of these guys are, they're pros at it seems like. But yeah, so perseverance, sabr, so patience. We do what we can within our Islamic community. We had an incident with a city council member about a month ago, and it's been a little over a month, and where she was saying that Islam has no place in Spokane Valley, Muslims had no place in Spokane Valley. I was just amazed at the outpour of support from our community. Those that, we had a few Muslims that came and testified, but a lot of our community, they will not come out because they're scared. They're afraid. They don't want to put themselves out there. It's just horrifying. I just cannot get my mind around it. I'm just absolutely mind-boggled. But the outpour of support that came with our Spokane community was amazing. I was like, wow. I just was like, I guess, I don't know. It's when I reverted to Islam, I did not think of anybody being against it, I guess. And so in my, research and studies and, prayer and my process of learning, I didn't think anything of it. And then 9/11 happened, and I went, oh no, what is happening? So in the persistence of advocating for my community, advocating for myself, advocating for my family, we grew patience. We came back around to being part of the community again and being active in our community. But it's hard to be Muslim sometimes. But my examples, those who I look to, yes, I look to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his practices, the way he led. It's called an ummah, so we are one ummah, so it's all of us that are Muslim. The way he led and his practices, and the Quran for us is a daily guide that we are to abide by. Our morals, our morality, empathy, love. We aren't supposed to hate. We aren't taught to hate. The Quran does not teach us to hate. It teaches us to accept. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place right now. I'm just like, so many things in my mind. But my examples are close friends that help with guidance. My husband, he is amazing. He's a born Muslim, and he has done his research, and so he's guided me a lot. But yeah, so those are my guides. And you know, with all of the support that is here in Spokane, before I became Muslim, before I reverted to Islam, I didn't have a community. And looking at all of you and having the support that showed up for our Muslim community, I have a community, and I am so very thankful for that. So, thank you.
How long are we going for? Huh? We've got 8 minutes. I want to thank you all 4 of our panelists for sharing and thinking about this important element, persistence, and matters of the spirit. It's a long haul, and we have no choice as people of faith but to persist, and to persist because others before us persisted, and others after us will persist. And 2026, more than ever, we will need persistence in the face of a very organized and concerted plan to prefer one religion over another, one version of a religion over another. That's not what this country is, and we have much work to do. We have a short period of time to field some conversation, some questions. So do we have a mic that floats around, or no? All right. Why don't, if you want to engage in some dialogue with our panelists or have some comment, I encourage you to stand, say it, and I will repeat it through this mic so everybody can hear. Yeah.
My name is Judy Mandeville. I so appreciate all that you all have shared. I well remember Joe Baez. I will remember that movement. And there were so many young people, millions and bazillions of us back then. How do we ignite the young folks in all of this to begin the persistence with their generation when their generation, this is pretty normal since they were in 7th grade, was the first administration of Trump. They're used to this, they're used to this, What do we do? How do we get that going?
So how do we get our youth and this younger generation to persist in this effort to bring justice and equality and love into the world in light of the fact that they've grown up with so much corruption, shall we say?
So let me give you a quick, I hope quick. One of the things I often say to my mother is that her grandkids parent differently than she did. I think we need to recognize that the younger generation might not look persistently the same way we think persistence looks, right? So they're not going to come to this on the whole. I mean, very few youth are going to show up for a Saturday meeting, but they are in the streets of Minnesota, right? And they're walking out of high schools, and they're advocating, and they're looking at things. So I think the question is not how do we get them to do it, but how do we support them in the way they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ditto. I mean, a sacred moment from the past couple weeks for me was discerning with my 15-year-old, the same kid who counted the slugs, whether he would walk out at Lewis and Clark, and what would the ramifications of that action be, and praying through that. And he actually came home and said, "Mom, there was people who prayed." Then he was like, "But it was okay." Like, theologically analyzing this event. So yeah, to support, to love, to show up, to be there, to persist in relationship to our young people, to our children.
Well, I live at Gonzaga University, and I noticed that there's more and more activity among the students in relation to the immigration issue. So that gives me hope.
Yeah, I think, getting in our community, the kids are coming out, they are protesting, they are speaking up. Mine has decided that she's going to go to law school and take on the law, so she really wants to, she's still thinking about working in immigration as an immigration lawyer. But yeah, I think with social media has been a real vehicle for our young. So, and that's what we can do, is just we put it out there, and the kids are going to be the ones to drive it. So,
Amen.
One more quick thought, and that is we, as a synod here, our geography includes Idaho, and we have been giving thanks for our outdoor ministry sites, and I think about Camp Cross as well, and Sidsen was mentioned, and we're actually thinking about those outdoor ministries a little more strategically as like opportunities for counter recruitment away from Christian nationalism. So it's not just Lutherans who end up like at Luther Haven, right? It's like, so for 1 week, can we give a child this like experience of belovedness and belonging? And like, I think about researchers say, it's kind of like a little penny on the track. If there's this train track pushing our young people toward extremism, one week of a camp just might be the thing that pops them off that recruitment engine, yeah. So.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to make a comment or hear some feedback from related to the issue of spirit and persistence and maintaining? A comment, good. Since you're close, would you? Yeah, you're used to speaking up here. You were here last year. Yeah.
They did this to themselves, I don't know. Hi everyone, my name is Nagmana Shirazi, and part of the Muslim community. And one of the things that I suggest we really need to look into about how we approach youth and the work that we do, because all of you do this, is to make sure that we get our perspectives and this amazing, wonderful conglomerate of knowledge that we have to our youth. As you said, Karen, the vehicle is social media. So get your stuff out on Reddit, get it out on other social media areas, so that that's where they go for their knowledge. That's where they go to read up stuff against and for. So if we can do that, if we can do that as a concerted effort, we can do this. We can reach our youth in a very, very big way. Thank you.
We'll take just a little bit more time if there is a comment or a question. Mary.
Just to let people know, the conference will be on YouTube afterwards, all the presentations will be on YouTube. Live stream right now.
Okay. All right. So this conference, all the workshops, as many of the workshops, as well as the plenary time and keynotes and so forth, will be on YouTube. At the figtree.org, click on video. Okay. Yeah, good to know. We have a good showing here today, if I'm reading the room correctly, and that's heartening. So the fact that we can reach out and spread the word through social media, all the better. And in the back is a hand raised, yep. Yeah, amen. Yeah. Yep. We're all share whether some spirit together, whether we consider ourselves atheists or believers in a particular faith. So I appreciate that comment very much.
I used to be a chemist. If I had been asked to talk about the organic chemistry understanding of persistence, I would have been happy to do that. I mean, I actually could easily talk for 52 minutes without stopping, right? And not mention God at all. But since we were asked to talk about the spiritual understanding, that's what I did. But yes, I mean, I think persistence can be found in many, many examples and understandings, right? And I think the real question is, find your grounding and use it.
There you go. That's excellent. Thank you. Yep.
How many of you been to the Saturday Park? Woo! I've been It is so amazing there. It is packed with youth. Of course, I'm 80, so that means anyone younger. There are so many young people there that I don't know. It is really, really exciting. Thank you all.
All right. Okay. I appreciate that very much. So, Malcolm, you take it from here.
Okay. So next up, we will be having our youth advocacy panel. Thank you so much. And thanks to our spiritual panel for their comments and conversation. And as our next panel comes up, maybe just as a personal note to one of the questions that was asked, I would encourage local churches and regional churches to become more interested and proactive in building or supporting campus ministries, especially in opposition to organizations like Turning Point USA, so that students can get an alternative form of discourse that is more progressive and radical. So that's one point. The other one is more of a historical nature for Spokane itself in terms of our association, in terms of intergenerational knowledge that comes from the past and what we know present and what we need to know into the future. But one pastor stands out in my mind that I want to bring up right now. J. Gordon McPherson was the pastor in Spokane in 1908 to 1909. He led some of the first interracial revivals in Spokane to combat Jim Crow that existed in Spokane. He became known as kind of the Black Billy Sunday. And Billy Sunday had his start with his revivals here in Spokane, too, at the same time. He took those revivals and that practice and discipline to California and then to the Deep South during Jim Crow. And so it was that source of revival movement that became a basis for the practice and discipline of interfaith and interracial dialogue and revival movement that existed during the civil rights movement. So next up we have our panel for youth advocacy. Our moderator is Freer Close.
Hello. Hello, Eastern Washington Legislative Conference. Thank you so much for being with us today, for taking the time to be together in this space to help grow our community a bit more. My name is Fenrir Close. I'm a youth organizer with the Peace and Justice Action League. So, thank you. Our last panel was wrapping up with the question of how do we support, how do we engage the youth, how do we start building that next generation that can step up where our wonderful, I'm trying to think of a better word than elder, but I don't think you guys are offended at that. So first, we've got three lovely panelists here today, all youth community organizers or members of the youth community who are active in the political scene. I'll have them introduce themselves. Let's go this way to that way. And give us your name, your pronouns, any organizational affiliations you have, and one weird fact about yourself.
Hello, my name is Bella Rossi. I go by she, they pronouns. I go to Western Washington University in Bellingham, Washington. I'm a senior there, studying environmental education and eco-social justice, minoring in climate change. You want a weird fact?
Yeah.
I can belch pretty loudly, and it's like I can talk belch.
Can you
It's
do
like-
the alphabet? Can you do the
Oh, I can do
alphabet?
the alphabet and then also just talk in a full sentence.
Okay, talk to me afterwards. We'll see that.
Okay, but
All
I
right.
can't force it. It just has to come.
It's gotta come
It's gotta-
naturally.
yeah.
It's gotta be the right moment.
Yeah, I can't just bring it. It's gotta have some action to it. But
Thank you. That's very
yeah. We all have a mic. Oh, this is
that's
great.
fun. Good afternoon. My name is Jada Richardson. I'm a member of the Spokane NAACP Youth Council as well as a senior social work major at Eastern. A weird fact. I mean, I can write with my toes, but I don't. I feel like we all can do that if we try hard enough, though.
You've got the dedication, though. You've got the dedication. You're locked into it.
See, I don't know if, okay, well, my name is Lee. I was like, wait, what weird fact do I have? But my name is Lee Velasco. I work with Nuestras Raíces Centro Comunitario here in Spokane. I am the director of education, so I work with youth. I also do a lot of youth advocacy with them. And a weird fact, I don't think this is weird, but I really like D&D, and that's my weird fact, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a weird fact, but I don't have anything other than that.
I've never heard of anyone who likes D&D.
Neither have I.
So we have 6 questions for our panelists today, questions that they have seen before and have prepared for. But if they say something interesting, I will not limit myself to a follow-up question that I think is interesting that they have not heard before. So, and they have just learned about that. So we're going to start with the first question that seems very relevant. In this current political climate, what do you think are the biggest hurdles for building community with young adults?
Should we start on this side? Okay. I think it was taking me a little bit to come up with a solid answer that had a culmination of so many things that need to be done. But I think a major thing that I'm seeing in a lot of communities is a lack of equity and diversity and accepting all different types of people into a community space. A lot of the spaces I've been in is very like not diverse. It's just like a bunch of white kids, and I'm like, this isn't like how big change happens. We need to be talking about big issues with the people that it's affecting the most. And I think there's also a fear of sharing deep feelings with other people and being vulnerable. It takes a lot of courage that is gained through having these deep discussions with people, and being okay to be as authentic as you can be. Yeah, that's what I have to say for that one.
I'm so curious, so I have to restrain myself from asking too many follow-up questions. But in Washington especially, we're a very, very white state, unfortunately. So how do you think we can, do you have any ideas for how we could start incorporating that diversity, even despite our circumstances?
I would say being okay to be uncomfortable in spaces. So I think a lot of the time we fear that we're gonna, overstep or, say the wrong thing. And I think that's a process of learning and unlearning and decolonizing our brain, is to be like, no, we are also here to make other voices be heard that are not. And so with that comes honoring, there's mistakes that our ancestors have made that we have the power to change. And it comes with being uncomfortable and just being okay with that.
Thank you so much, Bella. Jada, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so also I just wanted to add to what Bella was saying. Diverse spaces exist all across Washington, so we know that these are not impossible tasks to sort of incorporate diversity into the spaces we're in. I think in order to do that, you have to be intentional and be deliberate about your actions, the actions of yourselves, but also what's happening within your space. What I will say about that is we're making a conscious choice when we're not inviting people into the rooms that we're in. That's deliberate. For some people, it may be just an unconscious thing for them, but I think in 2026, it's kind of a deliberate task not to diversify your group. And so I just wanted to add that. But one of the hurdles that I've seen just in this political climate when it comes to creating community is Gen Z is such a spectrum. And some of us believe that community is the best thing and that we're supposed to be a collective. And then there are individuals who do believe that they're here by themselves and that they must care for themselves by themselves all the time. And so with that, these are the conversations within our generation that we're having is how important is community? What does that look like for us? How do we define it for ourselves? I think in past generations and then years prior to this, community has it's not been problematic, but for some people, that's where they experience their greatest harm. And so as Gen Z, how do we redefine what community looks like for us? What are our expectations of each other? What are others' expectations of ourselves? And so just trying to navigate that all seems like a hurdle for my peers and then people I don't know also.
Lee, what are you thinking?
Well, I really want to highlight what Jada said about community is sometimes where people have been hurt the most, right? And I think that was a really great point, and I want to really highlight that and really think about that. I am speaking from a point of view that I work with students, right? So I'm not necessarily part of the youth. I'm just someone that guides, right? Through that, in this current political climate, I work with Hispanic Latino community. I myself am Mexican American. I am seeing how everything is affecting not only the students, but it's affecting the family, it's affecting the 7-year-old that knows what's going on. And so a lot of it is not like, we want to start building a community. So for a lot of the Hispanic Latino students, and in this current political climate, is it safe for me to do that, right? Whether I am undocumented or not, what does that say about my mixed status family? If they see that my car is at a rally or a protest, is that safe for me? And then they're gonna know my name, and then they're gonna know my family's name. Is it safe for me to just be anywhere at this point, speak Spanish in the streets? And so like I said, I'm speaking from a point of view of working with the Hispanic Latino community. I'm speaking from a point of view that I've heard a lot from students, and that's a lot where their hesitance comes from. They want to be part of these movements, but is it safe for them to do so? Is it safe for their families? Because it's not only us that we have to think about our individual self, it's everyone else.
Thank you so much. We'll continue on to the next question, which is, in your personal experience, has social media activism helped or hindered in-person organizing? And just to follow up on the themes of our previous answers, I'd love it if you spoke at all about the themes of how people are sort of curating their experiences and are less prone or less willing to engage in discomfort.
I like this topic. As someone, so I've been interacting with college students, and one of the main ways that I communicate, like, events that I'm doing, and I'm currently running a club focused on tending grief for the world and honoring hope, and that is an uncomfortable thing to talk about and a vulnerable thing. And I think social media is, yes, good at that, like, marketing tactic, but it doesn't usually, like in this case, make people come to a space. I think the in-person interactions are what is missing in social media and the way that people use it, and it makes us feel fearful of being in spaces where we could be uncomfortable and, like, afraid and self-conscious and all of these things that, and, like, comparison of what we've accomplished and what other people have and what we haven't and all of that stuff. And so I think there's a lot of, like, gray area with that issue. And it's something that I hope changes, and I think, like, collective action happens when we all come together in person and with people, and yeah, that's what I'm gonna say.
Thank you so much, Bella. Jada, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I love social media. I'm not gonna lie, me and TikTok, we go together real bad. But I will say social media allows us to pick and choose what issues we're engaging with, because you can curate your feed. If I don't want to see it, I don't have to. And so the problem with that is there are so many social justice issues occurring in our country right now, in the world. But on social media, you can decide if you want to engage with that. And the reality is, for so many of us, that's not our lives. I don't get to pick and choose when to engage with the topics of police violence, because we're always talking about it. But if I was online, I can decide, oh, I'm gonna swipe this away, I'm gonna make it go away, or just things like that. And so I agree with Bella, social media is a great area. There's so many great things that come of it. The No King's Day protest is a great example of how young people were able to organize and use social media to gather a large crowd. But then there are other issues that are swept under the rug if we're solely using social media to connect with like-minded people. The civil rights movement is a great example of how social media, if it were to go away today, we can still organize. Students from Fisk University, Diane Nash, John Lewis, they organized and sat at counters in Nashville. They protested their school administration. MLK did not have Instagram. Malcolm X did not have Instagram. Huey P. Newton didn't have TikTok. You know what I mean? So while social media is this great power, we also should recognize that our ancestors and those that came before us didn't use it, and look what they did. So let's not become so reliant on that tool as the only way to connect with others.
I'm restating for my own purposes, just to like sum up. Your point is not that people are not engaging with the political climate through social media, but rather they would have a more fuller experience, or they would be more equipped to organize if they were doing it out in the world rather than picking and choosing, or?
Let me just make that clear. I don't think organizing via social media is a negative thing at all. I also think it needs to be partnered with organizing in real life, because ultimately social media might not be forever, but people are forever. And so how do we prioritize, engaging in communities versus engaging in online spaces? I think there needs to be a shift in how we do that. Yeah, there needs to be a shift.
I really like the phrase "people are forever." Yeah. Lee, what are you thinking?
I think for this type of question, it's important to like defer to youth, right? Like it's what they need, what they're seeing, rather than necessarily what we want, right? Like as I was gonna say, as older people, but I was like, I don't know. But one of the big things is I agree is that I think word of mouth is really important, and I think that's how a lot of like movements have been happened, and how trust is built. So you tell someone this event is happening, and they tell someone else, and they feel safe there, and so it kind of opens from there. One of the big things that I'm seeing in organizing right now is that people will post a flyer of an event that's happening, but they won't post the location. And I think that's really an important one. Just because it's important because it's reach out. Let me know if you are interested in this, because if I post the location, what happens? If there is a protest that's happening, and then there's someone that's going to be threatening to the people that are there, it's important to be aware of like what is the need of your community, what is the need of the youth, not only asking or like just thinking in your brain like this is what they need, right? No, this is a conversation that we need to have with youth, with the people that are being affected every day. And I think that's where I think uncomfortable conversations also begin. Sometimes I'm tabling and I come across someone that says something that is very uncomfortable, and how do you continue that conversation? How do you continue to table after that, right? So I think being open to uncomfortable conversations, but also allowing yourself to take a step back and really think about how that's affecting the person, I think is important as well.
Yeah.
I agree with everything they just said, but I also want to add, with social media, performative activism is truly a thing. I don't know if anyone remembers 2020 and 2021 as
the black squares.
The black squares, where individuals were posting Black Lives Matter and they put a black square and it ended up drowning out all the stories of Black people. And so for me, I'm very wary of social media as a tool for activism because of things like that. Black stories, especially right now in 2026, you hear them, but they're so watered down. They want us to filter ourselves about our experiences. And so when it comes to Instagram, I'm a little wary of the whole like sharing a story because I believe that your life matters. Because I can go out and show you that I believe your life matters by my vote, by how I'm engaging in community, by the conversations I'm willing to participate in, even if they're uncomfortable. So just wanted to add that.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna move around the question order because I think this is good to follow the conversation of the panel. So we're gonna skip down to the fifth question. What is your vision for the community you want to build, and what do we need to do now to work towards that? You can.
All right.
You don't have to start if you don't want to. Like,
No, I'll start. I want to give more time to you guys too. This is like so hard for me to define in like one sentence because I'm a very visionary person and I dream constantly about what could be done to better our world. And I think overall, I want to see a world that is safe and healthy for every single individual, no matter the color of your skin, no matter your culture, how you were raised. I hope that a power structure is shifted and in some way removed, but knowing our country, it would take forever. But yeah, and I think as a future environmental educator, teaching the youth about the importance of connecting with the natural world and connecting with one another and learning these innate experiences and ways of living that we have capacity for within ourselves to just understand our role in this world and to lead with our hearts and make change possible through those types of dynamics, while also doing the hard shit and going out there and being uncomfortable and all of that stuff and talking. And yeah, I'm kind of going on a tangent, but that's that's what I got.
Thank you so much, Bella. Jada, what are you thinking?
That was beautiful. Thank you. I'm not as optimistic about how we go. I'm not as optimistic about how we move forward with building community. I'm so sorry. I think we all have this idea of what, we all have this idea of beloved community and what it can look like in theory. However, the reality is it's hard to be in community with people who are anti-Black, anti-indigeneity, hate immigrants, hate gay people. You know what I mean? Like, it's really hard to be in space with that. And so I think in order to build community, we have to do some deconstructing of our own minds, some decolonizing. We all have a bias. We all have biases. I have plenty, trust. But in order to be in space with each other, it's important to recognize our flaws in that way, decolonizing your mind, deconstructing. I've heard this conference talk a lot about faith, deconstructing your faith and making the choice to either rebuild it back up or discover something else. And what do we need to do to get to this idea of beloved community? I think it's ultimately starts with self-reflection. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of internal work to be able to recognize, like, oh, I had this thought and that's kind of a problem. Because you don't know it's a problem unless somebody tells you. And so in order to get to this space, we need to have relationships with one another. We need to be in space with one another. We need to hold each other accountable. If I say something you don't like, please tell me, because I don't want to sit comfortable in my ignorance. I'm also trying to think of other things. Yeah, I'm sorry. That was not really community. And I am for community. I believe that we're all meant to exist amongst each other. No one should exist alone. But in order to get to that point of what that looks like, we have a lot of work to do. In 2026, as of today, I'm not so optimistic about where our world is going and how we're going to be able to share space in these coming days. But I do know it's possible. I look a lot to the Reconstruction era, Civil Rights era, and I'm like, how are they still able to be in community with these people? And they did it anyways, and so I think that's where some of my more positive thoughts come from. Like, none of this is new. I don't believe there's anything new under the sun. That's scripture. But I do believe that we have the tools to get to where we need to be.
Thank you so much, Jada. Lee, what are you thinking?
See, I think there's a spectrum here of like what community is, and for me, I'm leaning more towards Jada, to be very honest. But one of the big things I haven't thought about this question, right? Like, it's not something that like I'm continuously like, how do I want community? What is my vision for community to look like? Because I am often And I think for a lot of the community, it's like often like, let's survive today and then move on to the next day, right? And so I think that's what's going on. I think it's been going on for a long time. There's nothing new under the sun, right? Yeah. So everyone is kind of surviving, kind of figuring out what community for them looks like. I agree with what you said. I love the vision and what community can look like, and it's beautiful, and I love it, and I want it. I wish that could happen. But I think it's a struggle when we're continuously leaving people out, and I think that happens a lot. And to be honest, it happens a lot all over the world. It happens a lot in Spokane, and not to like call out Spokane, but it's the truth, right? And just kind of being aware of that and being uncomfortable in that thought, right? So I think that's where my idea kind of, there's no vision right now. Maybe one day I'll get there.
Yeah, I was just going to add to what they said. In order to have community, we need to have people, and right now we're not surviving. We're surviving, not thriving. Mm-hmm. And so in order to get to that point, we, the people, need to be able to survive and to thrive. And so until like our neighbors and our family members, our children, our uncles, aunts, grandparents, all of that are to the point where they feel like they can thrive in this society we're living in, it's impossible to create community when everyone is in survival mode. Nobody's thinking about how can we gather together. They're thinking about how can I get it to the next day. So.
Thank you so much. One follow-up question to Lee. Do you, your main, well, you ended off with about how leaving people out is a big hindrance to building community. What would be your suggestion to how do we notice who's being left out in what community, and what can you do about that?
I think we talked about it, Jada talked about it a little bit earlier. It's just like this, it's very much maybe an unconscious, but kind of does feel conscious at this point because it's 2026, right? I mean, it's kind of, we are opening these spaces up, but who are we advertising them to, right? We are doing events, but who are we advertising them to, right? We are doing outreach, again, but like, who are we reaching out to? And it seems to be always the same people, right? Rather than opening up to everyone and really trying our best to be conscious of like, who are we reaching out to? What communities are we talking to? And I think that that's, again, like making a conscious decision of reaching out to those communities. Because at this point, that is not, it no longer it has to be our job to be like, hey, I want to be part of this because I can create my own community, but I would love to work with everyone else, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. All right, we're gonna, unfortunately, we're cutting out 2 of the questions due to timing, but we're gonna do just the last quick question, like kind of brief, and then we'll open it up to questions from the audience. So the very last question, for anyone wanting to be more involved in their community, what are some concrete first steps?
Ooh, you want that brief? Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's a to-do list.
A to-do list. I think believing in yourself that you are meant to be in a space that invites you in, and like knowing that community is not linear and it's necessary for survival. And I think we often forget to, like, we're very disconnected from our body and our mind, and so just going outside and taking a walk and meeting with your community and your friends and talking to the trees, hugging them. I love hugging trees. And accepting that love around you exists even in the darkness. And to know that your light can never truly be dimmed. Like, that is wholeheartedly like yours to protect and honor and harvest and cultivate and all of that. So yeah, to young people, like, don't give up on that. Yeah, because I know I almost have, and it's tough. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Bella.
Mm-hmm.
Jada.
I would say showing up is a really big first step. I don't know people's names, but there are some people in this audience who I see at like almost everything. I saw them at the MLK rally, I saw them at the MLK church service, and then I told Dr. Mace back there, I was like, I love that lady. I don't know you, but you have a special place in heart. But yeah, showing up, go to the meeting, go to the rally if you want to, go to the council meeting, connect with people via social media or in person. Would love to talk about politics or what you feel about what's going on over coffee. I think we should bring back coffee dates. But I do think like the biggest and best thing you can do is show up. A few months ago, I had not wanted to go to something, and someone had said the price of community is inconvenience. So also recognizing that sometimes you're going to be inconvenienced. Nobody wants to be standing outside in the cold, but sometimes that's what you need to do because that's what your community needs. So yeah, showing up, being there in person, online, either way, just make sure your voice is heard and known.
Wonderful. Lee, what you thinking?
A lot of the first steps is, my brain has multiple thoughts and is trying to figure out which one to go with first, but it's finding a space that will teach you, because a lot of students, a lot of youth don't know like where to start, right? Where do I learn this? Where can I learn how to react to something, right? And so like I'm like, go to the NAACP, go to PJALS. They have great youth groups. Like, they really do.
Yeah, I started with PJALS.
Yeah, they're awesome. I had a student yesterday at an event that came up to me and was like, how can I help the community? How can I be participant of this? She was really young, and the first thing I said was like, go to PJALS. They have really great resources. Like, they'll be able to teach you a lot. But I think also for a lot of youth is like understanding your own boundaries. We often talk about like how can you be an advocacy today? How can you find space in that? And so like finding the different ways of that, right? There's ways that you can help with creating social media posts or being at protests or being vocal. There's so many different ways, and I think for youth to find their own boundaries and find their own space rather than being told like, why aren't you at this event? Like, you should absolutely be at this event. You have like no choice, kind of thing. It's like, well, yeah, it's great if you can be there, but if you can't, if you don't feel comfortable, if you don't feel safe, if this is not the type of advocacy that you can do at this moment, what is the type of advocacy you can do at this moment?
We all have different roles in the revolution, okay? Some people prefer to march, some people prefer to write, some people are really good at making infographics, some people can speak very well in a crowd, and so recognizing we don't all have to be doing the same thing as long as we're all doing something.
Hold on.
Now it's
Hello?
community.
Okay. Adding on to that, I think for a long time I thought that I always had to be like doing it and like being in that space to like talk in front of people, but I think through organizing and holding spaces like that in itself is an act of grace and an act of love, and is also a way to change the world through how we treat people. So I just want to say all of us are doing as much as we possibly can within our capacity, and I'm very proud of every single person being here today to listen to us and hold this space. It's immensely important, so a lot of gratitude.
Thank you, panelists, for those brief one-sentence answers. And we're going to open up questions to the audience. Yes.
Came to give a talk, and it was during the shutdown, and I engaged him a little bit about stuff that was happening in the community that was terribly affected by this, and he said he knew about it, but he just blew me off and seemed to be too concerned. So I would think we got some Republicans here, and use the word pertaining within your party, but there is another group. I would recommend it.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
You talked a lot about community, and you talked a lot about coming together, but I didn't hear anything about the intersectionality of disability when it comes to this, and I think that that's the major thing that's being left out. So I was wondering what each of you guys are doing to make sure that your spaces are accessible, that your protests are accessible, that you're bringing people together in a space where we're not going to get sick and we're not going to get hurt, because that wasn't brought up at all, and I was very curious of how you guys were approaching that.
The question was, how are the disability is often an identity of intersectionality that's left out in organizing. So how are some ways that we can make protests and spaces more accessible, prevent people from getting sick, etc.?
So I just wanted to give some context. I go to a college that is, we have a disability access center, which is amazing, but it's built in a way that is not suitable for a lot of people with disabilities. It's not accessible. There's too many stairs. And as someone, I have a mental disability, but physically, I'm I don't want these stairs either. And so I think there's a lot of talk about what the university can do, which is amazing. And as someone who is able-bodied, I want to respect every single person that has a disability. And I think choosing where I facilitate events is huge. So making sure that, I'm on a first floor where anyone can access the room, and if there's elevators, I try to have the events there. And yeah, I think there definitely is more that I want to do and talk about, and I just haven't had those conversations yet, but I'm very open to it. So if any of you have recommendations, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I think, thank you for that, for mentioning that, because I think sometimes we get so caught up in thinking that everybody lives the same experience as us that, again, we are being exclusive. And so with that being said, I think the activism and organizing space is very able-bodied dominated, as we know. And I think a part of undoing that requires us to deconstruct this belief that everybody has the same ability as us. In order to sort of open up this space, though, we need to talk to those who are disabled. That's whose voice needs to lead the conversation of what do they need to see, what do they want to see. And so I think for the spaces I'm in, how can I uplift your voice in the conversations we're hearing, but in the conversations we're having and the topics we're hearing, but also where are we holding our events? Who's seeing them? Where are they being posted? Are they accessible? So I have some reflecting to do, but thank you.
Yeah, I can only agree with both of Abella and Jada. Having a conversation and being open to that conversation that you, a group might not have had before, or either a center, whatever it may be, or a person, being open to that conversation. I also, having different places of having different actionable items that are accessible to people. So again, going back to the fact that not everyone wants to go to a protest or feels comfortable or is able to go to a protest, right? But what are the other actions that we can work together, that it makes it accessible to everyone, right? But I think still having conversation, continuing to learn, because I don't think we're ever done learning. I think that's important to know.
I'll give one little moderator thought that disability people, when you are able-bodied, you tend to think that it is a different world, but you won't be able-bodied forever. So I think a lot of people making these sorts of events and these sorts of communities accessible can only benefit everyone, because someday you will wish there are no stairs either. And it's the same fight. It's the same fight all around. We'll take one last audience question. Oh, you picked it.
Nagmana.
Yes.
I just wanted to, and I can project, but maybe a mic would be better, if you don't mind.
Oh, bring the mic. Okay. But you're so important.
I wanted to, the three people up there are fabulous, fantastic, and Jada, I know we haven't met, but I've known Bella and Lee for a while now. And so the thing is, when you are inviting people into a space, you really have to be mindful of how you're approaching them, how you're making space for them, right? So I know Lee didn't say this, but they're very active about language access and language justice. So whenever you're hosting any kind of an event, absolutely you need to think about access and you need to think about language. That's really, really important, because you want to make sure that you're reaching all the people that you're trying to reach. And I do want to point out, I get called upon a lot to bring the Muslim community into this, bring the Muslim community to that. Dude, I'm not bringing the Muslim community to anything, not when they're going to be targeted, not when I know my name's probably on a list somewhere. I'm not kidding. Being an immigrant, being brown, being Asian, being Muslim, being an old woman, I'm afraid to go out places right now. So what I really need is my white allies to show up in every space. I need my white allies to be where they need to be, to take up the slack, where I can't bring my community to talk about everything. But the unfortunate part is, if I don't show up, or if my Muslim community doesn't show up, you don't understand what I'm going through or what my needs are. It's a catch-22. I don't want to be out there, I don't want my face and name out there, but how are you going to know unless I come out there and tell you about it? So keep thinking about these things, keep thinking about access, keep thinking about who's missing, whose voice is missing, what do you need from them. We need to think about a different way of projecting, a different way of informing the community.
And before we end, Nagmana made a great point. Race, class, gender, sex all exist at an intersect. So one impacts the other impacts the other impacts the other, and we have America. So I urge everyone to always keep that in mind. I lead with my Black identity. I don't lead with my identity as a woman. And then they intersect, and then that becomes the biggest thing for me. And so being conscious of how do our identities show up in spaces? What identity are you speaking for? What experiences do you have? We all have something to share. We all have something to give. But recognizing intersectionality is a huge thing. And for me and all of my friends, it's a big reason why we don't engage with everybody, is because people don't recognize how race and gender impact everything. So I just wanted to leave with that.
Thank you so much. Let's give one last round of applause for our wonderful panelists. And we will for you.
Thanks again to our youth panel. Right now we have a break for about 20 minutes, so come back at 11:30.
Like, I didn't know how to say that because it's like, it's, you guys are kind of like who I don't want to just, yes. You see what I'm saying? Bro, like,
But that's why. It's not an awful truth. Yeah. But then when my mom would say, like, I don't feel comfortable with her traveling on October, like, oh, nothing happened then. But yes, it is all that. It's serious when you it is. It really is. That's when like they stop laughing at me because I actually was an aunt and I actually shopped for them and put things in the freezer and I was like, what are you doing? Oh, nothing ridiculous. Once people start like this whole thing happens, people panic, and then here you have everything. It's like it's okay, just laugh. And then once I said like, oh no, it's not you know, like my fear was like, not even during war. Not even during. I was like, it's a different kind. And you're still exempted. It's still good. It's like you have to still make it's good like the authorities still to tell them that it counts. You know what I mean? Like if you told them it doesn't count and violate. We share often similars. Oh yeah. I think I've seen you in you know on this screen. Yeah. I'm sure they're like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it, but I usually don't post so much. I was not. I have to say, I was like, I mean, I've only been here 3 years, but I never quoted them like I never told them about my testimony and all, and I'm like, oh, just kidding, because that was the thing. I was like, this is one that kept coming up in my head, like, just go with it. You know, if it came up in your head, you gotta that's say the one that's that's the one that's me. And then Paul Benz, he was just like, he also came up to me like, that's what it works. He's just like, and I was like, I was like a little bit true, like, am I really saying it? Like, usually I try to keep it, you know, different. And I was just like, I literally did shit. I see even you like, and I tell people, that's when you know, I'm quoting the gospel of the faith. Y'all need to start repenting and sending to the world. Well, that's also what I tell people too, like, when I become. You want me out of the picture? Oh no. Oh. Now or never.
Sorry, it is very hard to get some of the folks wrangled in from the other room, but we will be waiting just 1 or 2 more minutes more, but we will be starting again shortly. No, we're having a loud pastor.
Did you see that one reel about how the Seahawks always go to the Super Bowl whenever there's a new pope? Like every time there's a new pope, the Seahawks get sex. Like there's a reel that she's like, every time.
So we got first confirmation of when Luke Jasmine was coming at 11:30.
We can start then.
Yeah. All right, please come in and get seated.
Supportive housing and
Hello. Hello.
So we do have some that are still coming back in, but we might get a little bit started here. So I have the briefings this time at about 11:30 with Kirsten Ang from Washington FAN and Jean Welch Hill from Catholic Conference. And we will be later joined by Luke Jasmine III, who is the Eastern Washington representative for the Washington State Governor's Office. And he'll be here about 11:50. So I think we could probably get started.
Well, good afternoon, good morning. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. I'm Kristen Ang, the Policy Director and Lobbyist for Faith Action Network. We'd like to say we advocate for just and compassionate legislation or in the halls of power. And thank you for being part of our network. So I'm gonna talk about what's happening in the legislative session because it is jam-packed. The 2026 Washington State Legislative Session is 60-day short session that started on January 12th, and it's a supplemental budget year. My nickname for the short session is the espresso session because it is short and intense. But despite these short timelines, decisions being made right now will have long-lasting consequences for for communities across our state. The Democrats hold majorities in both chambers. In fact, has increased it 30-19 in the Senate and 59-39 in the House. But the political dynamics have shifted in important ways, which I might have told you last year. In 2025, the Senate welcomed 8 new Democratic members, bringing new leadership and perspectives. In the House, 21 new members joined following retirements, departures, and decisive Democratic victory in the 18th Legislative District with Senator Cortez. The result is a House that is much younger and more progressive, but the other side is also, we are seeing a divide more than in past years, with a caucus more willing to challenge austerity and name structural inequities in our tax system. And this is the context in which lawmakers are confronting one of the central challenges of this session, and that's the budget. The budget is the shadow that hangs over every session, but more so this past session and this session in itself. So we do have a choice. Washington is facing a projecting $2.3 billion shortfall, driven by a revenue downturn, inflation, more demands, and impacts of federal policy, including H.R. 1, often referred to as the big beautiful bill, but I call it something else, big brutal bill, which shifted costs to states while reducing federal support. No state in the nation is actually prepared or have the funds to fill in these gaps. Washington is actually one of the more well-off states. Last session, the legislature already resolved a $16 billion shortfall, largely through a combination of reserves, one-time solution, and delayed investments, unfortunately, whether that's even for foster care or age blind and disabled. This means many of these easy options are gone. We are going down to the bone, as they say in cutting. Governor Bob Ferguson has proposed a cuts-only approach to close the remaining gap this year, with nearly $800 million in agency cuts, in which some of our healthcare, education partners, and others are pushing back on, and a $569 million shift of Climate Commitment Act funds, and approximately $1 billion from the Rainy Day Fund. Notably, the governor has said he is not proposing new tax revenue this year, but he is supporting the millionaire's tax, which has not dropped. This approach has reignited a fundamental debate with regards to austerity versus values. Will Washington respond to this moment with austerity or with a values-driven budget that protects dignity, stability, and the common good? We have somewhat been here before with the economic crisis of the downturn in 2008, in which we have not seen social infrastructure actually rise to the levels of those before those times. Because of 2011, 2012, we gutted our social infrastructure, our safety nets. Advocates, including Faith Action Network and coalition partners, have been clear. Balancing the budget on the backs of people who are already struggling is not a moral solution. A moral budget prioritizes basic needs, protects the most vulnerable, and asks those with the greatest capacity to contribute more fairly. And so this is why at the heart of this conversation and some of the solutions we're proposing is progressive revenue, including two major proposals. The millionaire's tax, which will drop sometime this session, and House Bill 2100, the Washington Well Fund. Washington has one of the most regressive tax systems in the country, meaning those at the middle to bottom pay more into the tax system. A higher share of their income taxes than the wealthiest residents. We were once the worst in terms of the most regressive, but we are now second to last. Florida is now the last. That's because we passed the capital gains tax for those who make profits of over $250,000. That's not the sale of $250,000, it's profits of $250,000 on stocks and bonds, and also having a working families tax credit that gives back money to low to medium households. About $1,250 the max per year. So if you do qualify, please apply for those things. The millionaire's tax, some of the details about that, it would apply a 9.9% tax on annual income over $1 million. It would affect only about 20,000 of the wealthiest individuals statewide, which is about 0.5% of Washington's population. And early estimate shows it could raise about $3.5 billion per year. This is not about punishing success, it's about aligning our tax codes with today's economy. As you've probably all noticed or heard on CNBC, or if you watch Wall Street, talk about the K-shaped economy. Those that are doing well are doing even better, investing more, and those that are just like medium, middle income and low income families are actually struggling even more to deal with the affordability that's happening. And so this ensures that extreme wealth contributes, this millionaire's tax ensures that extreme wealth contributes to the systems that make prosperity possible: schools, infrastructure, healthcare, housing, and public safety. This is a long-term structural fix, not a one-time pitch, and it will help stabilize some funding. The next one is House Bill 2100, which is being proposed by Rep. Sean Scott. It's called the Washington Well Fund, as a nickname for it. We testified in support for this funding stream, and House Bill 2100 would establish a 5% payroll tax on employers. Employers would be the one to pay, who have more than $7 million in annual payroll, and apply primarily to wages above $125,000, and this would generate over $2 billion per year in ongoing revenues. This bill is designed as a long-term response to some of the fiscal instability that we are seeing, but also in response to HR 1. Because HR 1 gave tax breaks to the top, the most tax breaks to the top, 10%, if not 1%, while gutting healthcare, food assistance, et cetera. And so we do need to have a Washington State response. Chris Wrightdale, the superintendent, said we are spending now less per student adjusted for inflation than we did 7 years ago. And meanwhile, families are facing skyrocketing costs for housing, childcare, and healthcare. And so we believe that House Bill 21 begins to correct this imbalance. Of course, housing is, always a priority, and it's this year. I think the theme is from punishment to permanence. Housing is both a budget issue and a moral issue, and here are some of the bills. One you maybe have heard about is the Shelters Not Penalties. That's House Bill 2489 with Gregerson. And if you want our fan agenda, which has all the bills of every different sections, they're in the back there on the table if you don't have one already. So that's House Bill 2489. And this would prohibit local governments from criminalizing life-sustaining activities in public when adequate shelter is not available. So instead of spending public dollars on citations, fines, and incarceration, it redirects resources towards service providers and real solutions. The bill responds directly to some of the harmful trends following recent court rulings and some of what the local governments have been doing, and affirms that survival is not a crime. The other one is House Bill 1859, which originated from Spokane. I'm just going to give shout out Spokane and your organizer, Bree, and some of your coalition members here. It's House Bill 1859, expanding affordable housing on faith property. So this would expand opportunities for affordable housing by increasing density bonuses, having some sales tax exemptions for properties on religious organizations, and that for multi-faith. So that originated from Spokane, and that 50% or more of these units must serve low-income households. So this bill recognizes that faith communities are critical partners in addressing the housing crisis and removes barriers that prevent underused land from becoming homes. The other bill that has momentum is House Bill 2266. This has an executive session scheduled this coming week. You have to pass all your bills out of policy committee by February 4th. So the two bills I've mentioned, shelters not penalties, and this one, House Bill 2266, legalize permanent, to have more permanent supportive housing, have executive sessions this week, and they could use your advocacy. So this bill would prevent local governments from denying or delaying permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, or emergency shelters through zoning and permitting obstacles. So that's called step housing, shelters, transitional, emergency for permanent supportive housing. So this makes sure that if residents can be built here, then shelters and other types of housing can be built as well. Because sometimes local governments will be very NIMBY and basically block, delay, or outright make it unlawful to build this type of housing. And the other one is to maintain a strong housing budget, for the Housing Trust Fund, and additional $3 million for eviction defense program. And just to touch up on the environment, AI, climate justice and the AI economy and data centers have become, I guess, what's in the media. And one of the most emergent issues is the expansion of these AI-driven data centers. And some of the bills that we're looking at is House Bill 2245, and House Bill 2515, which addresses the energy, water, and climate impacts of these facilities. And this requires data centers to comply with the Washington's 100% clean electricity law, that they too have to be sustainable, and establish standards for affordability, transparency, and environmental accountability, and then preventing them from disproportionately harm to overburdened and frontline communities, and making sure that it's not our wallets that are subsidizing their profits. That technology and these data centers actually have to serve the people and not at the expense of climate or our community. And the other one I'm just going to mention is Senate Bill 5974. This is more public safety. It's accountability and standards for law enforcement leaders, as well as not with the use of volunteers. That you can't just simply deputize these volunteers for ICE enforcement, et cetera. And then some of the things that we also have on our legislative agenda, Jean will go over, because we share similar with regards to immigration enforcement, no mask for law enforcement, safe spaces, disinvestment for private detention centers, et cetera. But if you have any questions, I'm going to be here all day. Plus, we have a website, fanwa.org, in which the legislative agenda, as well as the bill tracker that we update every week, you can see what's happening with your bills, as well as one-pagers on these bills and e-news. And I'll pass it on to Jean.
Thanks, Kristen. Yep. Jean Welch-Hill, Washington State Catholic Conference. And yes, the other thing that's happening in this very intense session is responses to what's happening on the immigration side federally, and trying to address how do we protect our people from this out-of-control immigration enforcement regime that we're seeing happening. And so there's a lot of bills. I will tell you, if you come to our session, diving a little deeper, I will give you the list of immigration-related bills. This isn't even all of the bills. This is the ones that may actually move on. But there is a lot of effort to try and address the fear that is in the community, and just the sense that what's happening in Minneapolis could happen anywhere, and we want to be prepared for that and ahead of the game. But first and foremost with the budget, one of the other cuts in the budget is a cut to Apple Health expansion. Apple Health expansion covers undocumented immigrants. As we know, when it was funded up to 12,000 people. Only 8,000 were enrolled, not because 12,000 didn't come forward, but because that's where Department of Health stopped enrollment. So there was extra money for 3,000 more that didn't get spent. And now we're going to cut Apple Health expansion by 40%. So we're taking people who are being stalked by the federal government and depriving them of basic necessities such as health care. So this is something we've been advocating for with the governor. One point that the governor's office made to us that is a really valid point on this, one of the reasons that they have stopped this enrollment is because of the fact that they're being asked regularly to give information on who's enrolled in Apple Health to the federal government, which is not something we want to do at this point in time because we know that information will be misused. So there's some pieces of this to work out, but we cannot deny people access to basic needs such as health care. So we will be continuing our efforts on that. Another really important bill that we're supporting is it's HB 2105 and SB 5852. This is about I-9 audits. If you're working for an employer and you're a foreign national or whatever, however you want to term it, you fill out an I-9 form. The federal government will occasionally want to check those I-9 forms to make sure they're accurate, but usually that precedes now, in our current situation, a raid on the business. So the bill is very simple. If the employer gets notice that they're going to have their I-9 forms audited, they will inform their employees that that is going to happen. And the bill has been substituted, and the changes make it so the AG's office will create the form of the notice. They'll put it in multiple languages so it's available. All the business has to do is put the date of the intended audit and share that with their employees how they would normally share out information with their employees. It's a very simple request for an employer to make sure. It may be that an employee has used a false Social Security number, or it may be that they put a number wrong unintentionally on their form. This gives them 3 days before the audit happens to try and correct those discrepancies or to make the plans they're going to need to make when the raid happens and they get taken away from their families. So it's an important bill, again, to give people a chance to respond rather than just having a business raided and people rounded up like cattle. Another big piece that we are looking at, de-investing in private prisons. Glad you're all supportive. SB 6109, there is no reason that any state should invest in a business that commodifies human beings and makes their money off of human misery. So we want the state out. This is, the state is doing all of this great work to show they don't support what's happening on the immigration front, and then you're helping to fund a piece of what's happening on the immigration front. So 6109 did have a committee hearing, and I believe it's gone to Ways and Means Committee, so it still has a chance. It's made it out of its policy committee, essentially, and is now in the Ways and Means Committee because it does have a fiscal note. We testified, yes.
Thursday. We testified on Thursday.
The religious factor was represented. We did that. There's so many bills, so I want to make sure I get kind of the hit the tops. The SAFE Act is an important bill as well. SAFE Act makes sure that information at schools, at daycares, at learning centers is not shared with the federal government. Originally, it also included healthcare facilities. Those were taken out to make the bill passable because that kind of raised some issues. And it also originally required a judicial warrant to go into those facilities. Unfortunately, the judicial warrant has been taken out. And the difference is a judicial warrant, as the name implies, means you've gone to a judge. There are administrative warrants you can pretty much just write yourself as a federal agency. And then there's a judicial warrant, which is sort of the gold standard because you have to prove you have a need to actually go in and do something. That judicial warrant piece has been taken out of the bill again to make it so that it can get through the legislature, but the SAFE Act is still another critically important effort to make sure that, again, the government is not getting information it doesn't need to do things we don't want it doing. A kid showing up to their early learning center should not face the fear that they won't be picked up by a parent at the end of that day. So we want to support that bill as well. Again, there are so many. One other thing off that topic, I will say another great bill that the legislature is working on that we're in support of is to make sure that, yes, vaccines are required, and yes, they're required so that people's insurance can pay for those vaccines. Those bills are going through, and we're excited to see those things happening. I will give our other speaker his moment here. So let me just see if there's one more I think I wanted to share with you. Those bills are HB 2242 and SB 5967. Those are the vaccine-related bills. And the other piece I will just mention is an effort to ensure that there is not surveillance price fixing, which also helps our lower income folks not have their prices change because somebody has decided through an algorithm that they can afford to pay more. And I'll leave it at that and turn it over to Luke.
All right. Can you hear me? Okay, listen. So I just want to let you know how important you are. I had to cut the governor off, and I told the governor, listen, I got to be back here, give an update. I'm Luke Jasmine. I'm the Eastern Washington representative for Governor Ferguson's office. So mainly what I do is external relations. I'm meeting with a lot of you, hearing what's working, what's not, and just making sure that gets to policymakers, the governor's office, in order to have positive effects here in our region. This is fairly dense, okay? And what I will say, if you all have pen and paper and your phones, please take down my email right now. All right, you are studious. Look at that. Everyone's ready. So it's luc.jasmin@gov.wa.gov. So again, it's luc.jasmin@gov.wa.gov. Okay? So that's my official email. It is subject to public records requests. Okay? If you want to reach out to me personally, my email is luc.jasmin@gmail.com. I know. So my first name .jasmine, my last name @gmail.com. Okay, are you ready to hear the fun stuff that's happening? Actually, I don't know if it's fun. Currently right now, which many of you I'm sure are aware of, we're facing a $2.3 billion deficit in our state. So, we're looking at next biennium, so that means the following 2 to 4 budget cycle year, we're anticipating about a $15 billion deficit. Okay, so things are pretty serious right now. And how we got here, several ways. One, ACA, so Affordable Care Act dollars that we're getting into community, those are pretty much null and void right now. We have a lot of it is because of our federal government right now, and major cuts to programs like health and other areas, and then the other piece is just inflation, just costs going up. Okay, so but that's where we're at, and the governor has proposed no new taxes to close this session, but he does support a wealth tax. So no new taxes on us, unless we have multimillionaires in this room. If we do, please talk to me afterwards. And what governor really wants and is directing our state legislature to do is, okay, let's figure out how to balance our tax code. So that means let's not just do a wealth tax. Let's figure out how we can alleviate some of the pressures that we're facing every day. Sales tax, B&O, gas tax, things of that nature are what we're looking at to offset and make things more balanced. So one of the things is we're facing cuts to childcare. So for those of you who are, childcare is really important. What's being proposed right now would remove a lot of families from work and connection subsidies. Okay, provider rates would drop, which ultimately would cause quite a bit of closures. Okay, there's a 50% cut to professional development funding. And transitional kindergarten is just one of the type of programs that's in place to be able to support families. And there's a proposal to eliminate a lot of the transitional kindergarten slots. Okay, so Democrats right now are pushing for us to use our rainy day funds to cover some of these cuts, but they're very real. And again, if early learning and childcare is very important to you, I would say get involved. Okay, immigration. So for many of you who know me, I'm a first-generation Haitian American. We have a large Haitian population here in Spokane. I believe last we tracked, it's around 500 people here of Haitian descent. And we're fairly limited in what we could do as a state and as a city. But there are some bills that are moving. So Senate Bill 5855, and I apologize if either of you went through these already. But if we did, then you need to memorize afterwards, and we'll quiz you. Okay. So Senate Bill 5855 bans ICE agents from wearing masks during routine operations. So that passed Senate and it's heading to the House. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. Give it up. Yeah. Yeah. House Bill 2165. It criminalizes impersonating law enforcement. Okay. Then that one's actually moving with bipartisan support, surprisingly. House Bill 2411, it allows state workers to use shared leave for immigration-related absences, okay? And that passed the House, all right? And again, I know I'm breezing through these. Make sure to follow up with me afterwards, and I can get you more detailed information, okay? So housing, we're actually expecting quite a bit of new investment just because we do have a housing issue. So we're looking at a tune of $244 million in new investments, and a lot of that would go to the Housing Trust Fund, and it's just allowing more capabilities to build different types of homes. Okay, and then House Bill 2151 streamlines modular housing standards. So I would follow that. Rent stabilization is not really moving this session. Okay. It passed last session, correct? Yeah. So there's no new.
The rent stabilization passed last session, House Bill 1217, that caps rents at 7% at the max of 10%, and manufactured homes, they're capped at rent at 5% annually.
Yes, that is true. Okay, but this session, there's no new movement there. Okay, but you are correct. Last year was a big year for rent stabilization. Healthcare. So. Look, we received about $181 million in federal funds for rural health, and but we're really looking at the federal cuts to Medicaid. That and again, these are rough numbers, right? These are not actual, but we're thinking this is probably going to affect about 30,000 Washingtonians, and long-term care for about 3,000 seniors and people with disabilities. So starting October 1st. So state lawmakers are negotiating how to backfill these losses. But again, we have a big deficit. So really pushing on our federal delegation to make sure that they're protecting health is very important. Okay. So looking at health bills that are moving right now, House Bill 2283, it requires insurers to spend 90 cents of every premium dollar on patient care. We have House Bill 1566, which limits prior authorization decisions to medical professionals, so not AI. Okay. Now, just kind of briefly going over the Spokane specific movement that's happening. So the Spokane waste to energy plant, there's quite a bit of conversation happening around that. So our facility is one of the only in Washington, and is the only solid waste system in the state subject to Climate Commitment Act penalties. Now, what that means, and landfills right now are exempt, which, you know, what the numbers we have is Spokane ratepayers pay between $4 to $8 million annually, starting in 2027, if there isn't anything done to either. So what we're asking, or what the city is asking for, is relief to meet the climate commitment standards, so that the rates just don't go up. Okay. And then the other one is, so as a lot of you might have remembered, the Spokane ordinance, the safe and accessible spaces. Okay, we're kind of watching House Bill 2489, and this is Shelter Not Penalties Act. Folks are afraid that this is going to override what the city passed. And really what this is saying is cities cannot enforce camping bans unless they prove adequate shelter space is available. Okay, so again, I just wanted to give a quick, rundown of what's moving this year and not. And again, if you want to follow up with me for more information, just let me know. Thank you all.
We'll maybe take a couple of questions from the audience. Yes?
I did want to make a clarification.
Sure.
The millionaire's tax, if even passed this year, the money that I talked about wouldn't be implemented till 2029. However, Rep. Sean Scott's bill, House Bill 2100, if implemented now, would actually bring in some money to counter some of these cuts that we've heard, and we could have a more budget rooted in dignity, accountability, and justice.
Go ahead.
How do we advocate for passage of these bills? What are the practical steps that we need to take?
So a number of steps you can take. Both FAN and the Catholic Conference we have an advocacy bulletin that goes out during the session, goes out every week. We also put our legislative bills on our website so you can see. Our advocacy bulletin will have links to go in and submit your comments. So there's 4 things you can do. When the bill is in committee, you can sign in pro, and you'll see, that has some effect and it doesn't. I mean, you'll see bills where they'll have 15,000 people signing in con, and the bill's going to pass. So just signing in pro is a step to take. That's kind of the baby step. The next step is to sign up to testify. That's a little scarier, but you can do it remotely. You don't have to be in Olympia to do that, or you can come to Olympia and testify in person. You may or may not get called. Most of the committees are really good about trying to call everybody who's signed in to testify, and you'll get, if you're lucky, you get a minute. If you're really lucky, you get a minute and a half. And if they know you and like you, you get 2 minutes now. But signing in to testify is helpful because, again, you really kind of get to present your perspective. The other thing you can do is send in written comments, which are also helpful, and that's to the committee. So if your legislator is not a committee member, that is your way to send in your thoughts to the committee. Other than that, following the bills, finding out where they're at, when they hit the floor, so these bills that have passed their committees, they can be pulled to the floor in the House or the Senate at any time. And so now is the time, if you see a bill on our list that has gotten through committee, now is the time to contact your legislator and say, hey, this bill is a priority for me. And you can do that again on the legislative website. If you go to the bill, you'll see, send a comment to your legislator. You can just click that. It'll ask your address, it'll find your legislators, and you can send your comments to all 3, your 2 representatives and your senator, through that link. Do put in your subject line that you are a constituent. They are getting thousands of emails a day. They have interns who are reading through those emails. They will typically ask their interns prioritize constituents. So you do want to say immediately, and don't be rude, right? And don't hide the ball. Constituent concerned about SB 5906. Not constituent wanting to tell you what a piece of crap I think you are, because they're obviously not going to open that particular email. Nor is it, the nice, polite thing to do. These folks, we may not agree all the times with what our legislators are doing. We may agree with them every time, but bottom line is they're human beings doing a very hard part-time job. And so you want to be brief, you want to be respectful, get to your point, and don't give them every great point you think you have in your head. Leave it to your top 3 points, and no one's going to scroll through your email if it's 10 pages long. So just keep it brief and get to the point. Other thoughts?
They say that advocacy and what can be done at the legislature is actually how much space they're given in the public sphere and community. So I even believe like letters to the editor. So then they feel like, hey, there's people in my community that cares a lot about this, and that can be used even to pass on all around Washington State. Even letters to the governor saying you would like to see some progressive revenue to avoid some of these cuts. So that is one way as well, is a letter from you or from associations or organizations, faith communities, to even, let's say, the Speaker of the House to the leadership or Senate majority, be like, we'd like to see this pulled, we'd like to see this get a floor vote. Aside from what Jean said, that this is some of the things that you can also do. We also have an Interfaith Advocacy Day on February 12th. If you'd like to come in person to Olympia and just knock on the door and get your legislator pulled off the floor to talk to you about it.
Any more questions? If you are interested too, Kirsten and Jean will be available at 2 o'clock workshop on, further articulation of issues and budgetary issues and so forth. So if you have more questions, you can join that session as well.
Yeah, so what is being asked right now is to push it off for about 4 years because, and again, I'm just a messenger, okay? Obviously, we want to make sure that we're doing our part, right, under the Climate Commitment Act. There are some potential ramifications. Obviously, us paying more funds is one, right? And a lot of folks are feeling the effects there. The other piece too is the closest landfill is in Adams County, so you're talking about shipping it there, and that's not really that climate friendly either. And then, the other piece is the effects on all of the other, large employers and them utilizing there and what the impacts could be there. So it's not saying, hey, we want a waiver and we don't want to meet this criteria. It's just more saying, hey, we need more time to figure out what the best way to approach this that's not going to raise costs on everybody or really just have unintended consequences. Yeah.
Can I go? I'm sorry, I want to go back to the other question too. Also remember, this is an election year. Every member of the House will be up for election in 2026. So after the session is over, when they're preparing for next year's biennium budget, with the hole still existing, go to those events that your representatives and senators are holding. Town halls, even if they're telephone town halls, you are their constituent. You have the right to ask them hard questions. And they are running for, well, again, not every senator will be up for election, but the House will. Ask them the hard questions and let them know what your priorities are for the coming year, because you'll know how this is all played out by then. by this summer, you know, when they start having events, by the fall when they start having events, you're going to see how things played out. You're going to know by the time those events start happening after Labor Day how that's impacted your community. Go to those events. I strongly urge you to let them know there are constituents here who feel this way about these priorities, and here we are, you know, there's at least 10 of us in the room, or there's 5 of us in the room, or there's 2 of us in the room. Here's what we care about, and what are you going to do in the next session about those things.
And just really quick to add to that, like that's very valuable. And yes, this session's happening right now. We need to do everything in our powers to advocate. But during interim, so right after session, that's really where a lot of the work happens. And what I'll say, which many of you probably already know this, is sometimes you reach out and you want to talk to that legislator, and they have their staff available. And what we've seen and what I see in the governor's office quite a bit is staff get blown off. And folks are like, oh no, I don't want to, you're not a decision maker. I want to talk to this legislator. That staff are the ones that do the work, okay? So you should make staff, you should make staff your best friend, okay? Seriously, because it's about a relationship, and at the end of the day, we're people, right? So, just, that's fantastic advice. Just remember, look, build on that relationship. It's not going to happen quick, but if you don't have a relationship with anyone and you're demanding things, we're human beings still.
I want to thank our panel, and again, a reminder, we do have 2 of them who will be in the session at 2 o'clock too if you had more questions. So now is time for breaking for lunch.